Folks, thanks again for joining us on the Revolution and Beer Show. I'm W.C. Turk, Chicago author and activist.
I'm Brian Murray, revolutionbeer.com.
Yeah, we're doing Revolution again. More than beer this time. We've got a really important issue, and actually we really are excited to have these guests in. We've been wanting to spend more time on this particular issue for a while now, and so it's really fortuitous that we can spend some more time on it.
Yeah, we've had everyone's aware of the housing bubble that exploded back in and around 2007, 2008, and there have been a lot of people doing a lot of really good community organizing to try to lock some of these properties down and keep people in these homes. We're going to talk about why that's important and how these folks have been successful at doing some of that.
Yeah, and I think through their stories and what we're going to talk about a little bit, it'll become apparent that this is something that touches all of us, and this is something that can happen to all of us. Some of the things that we've been covering with the foreclosure issue and with the affordable housing issue in Chicago are things that people that don't have a lot of resources to be able to fight these battles can very easily, by doing everything right or everything you're told to do right, can very easily, you can find yourself in some of the same positions that our friends here, our guests here have, or some of the people that they're fighting for. So that said, we're also going to give you on the screen here, we're going to give you resources so that you can join the conversation. You can check some of this out. I know our guests have resources as well. We're going to have those up on the screen so that we can concentrate on the conversation. You will also be able to find those at revolutionandbeer.com. Where you'll find all kinds of things. You'll find more about what we do, more about the shows and the content.
Mm-hmm. You're also going to find links to all of our social media, some really fun content that we put together, and all sorts of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess without further ado, I'd like to get to our guest here. I'd like to introduce Maria Cavillo. I said that right.
Hello.
Thank you. Maria Cavillo.
You're a volunteer with
Yes.
Communities United Against Foreclosure and Eviction.
Yes.
And you're also someone who's facing this very issue as well.
Yes.
And kind of what seems to me, and we'll get more into this in a second after we introduce the other guests. But it seems to me that again, one of those situations you did everything right, and now you find yourself in a really bad spot.
Yes, it's true.
Sitting next to Maria is R.B. Bowman, who I've had the pleasure of meeting a few times when we've been out on the picket line in front of 1246 West Astor. West Pratt, I'm sorry, Astor House in Chicago. And you're also affiliated with
MTO.
MTO. Explain what MTO is for you.
Well, MTO is a community organizer, which they come out and they help people who's facing eviction and stuff, and they try to send more people out to help us, and they're doing a real good.
And that's the Metropolitan Tenants Association.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next to him, Sid Price,
Hello.
Also with a volunteer with Communities United Against Foreclosure and Eviction, or Communities United for short.
Sure.
Which is, I think, a really poetic way.
Or if you want to call it coffee.
Coffee is also quite a good name for it.
Yeah, and we know Sid actually through Mary Bonelli.
Right.
Mary Bonelli, just to catch people up and not to get too deep into the story or spend too much time on the details of it, Mary was rehabbing her home and took out a loan from Fifth Third Bank.
That's right.
That's not in dispute. What's in dispute is what happened after that.
Right.
According to Mary, she was making all the payments on time. Fifth Third Bank, for whatever reason, seems to have stopped accepting those payments. At some point, her home was sold without her knowledge.
Or consent.
To Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
That's right.
By the time she caught up on all these details, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were foreclosing on her. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So
she's not missed a payment at all. It's just they didn't accept the payment, and she had to find out about it. A couple weeks later, like, why is the money still there when they haven't accepted it? It's very much a nightmare. She's a 76-year-old woman who has lived in this house for 3 generations since before she was born. 1921 is when her family moved in there, and Many people in Chicago, many people in the world are dealing with this problem. But I think that it's particularly egregious in her case because she's everyone's picture of a great person, and she has health problems, and she's facing eviction now.
Yeah, a lot more information about that particular situation, you can go to revolutionofbeer.com and check our archives, our past shows. There was a radio segment that we did on WCPT a couple of months back, focusing specifically on her, and there's also some writing that Bill did about it, so you'll be able to find out all that information if you want to. Yeah, absolutely.
And then Arby, I wanted to bring you into this again because it would sort of seem that the foreclosure issue and the housing issue might not match, but there's kind of an assault against working people or people who have limited income or limited means or fixed incomes for housing in this city. Am I seeing that right?
Yes, you are. I've been a tenant at 1246 West Pratt for about 2.5 years. And when I moved in, it was very nice. The management was good and everything. And then it started falling down here. And they ended up selling the building, and they didn't tell us about it. And on Halloween, actually, me and my daughter came in from trick-or-treating. We were served with a 5-day notice. They have no proof that I actually lived there. And before new owners took over, I was suing the previous owner because of a bed bug situation where my daughter was completely eaten up with bed bugs. Until this day, thank God I don't have them, but she still has the nightmares from it. And to them, when they took over, because I didn't have a lease or anything, they don't know me as a resident there. Right. They consider me as an outsider.
And by they, we're talking about BJB Properties. And I'd like to actually invite BJB Properties or a representative from BJB Properties to come on the show. We'll have that conversation. So if there's something that's not being, if there's a perspective that we're missing here, we would love to be able to set that straight. But we'd love to have them come on the show and talk about some of these issues. Absolutely, absolutely.
And BJB is trying to force everybody to leave the premises. They want to rehab and re-gut the building. They want to raise the rent 45 to 50% more, and they want to rent it to some Loyola student. So where does that leave people who can't afford? There's a lady who's been there 27 years, paid her rent on time, had a lease. Now they told her that she's got to move. They're not accepting her rent no more. She's got emphysema. Where is she supposed to go? I'm a single mother raising an 8-year-old child by myself. Okay, I can't afford $800, $900, or even $1,000 rent. So what am I supposed to do?
And if you could lay that out for folks, because I think I remember there was a press conference with a lot of the mainstream media that was there, and they said, well, why can't you just move to another place? Or explain the challenges a little.
People can't move to another place because if people looks up on the website, when you go to see about an apartment, they're going to ask you where you come from. We're number 1 on the bed bug registry. We got mice. Besides the bed bugs, now there's roaches all around. So when people goes to look us up, they're going to see, oh, well, you coming from an infested building. Even if you don't have them in your apartment, they're still going to see it, and they don't know if you're going to carry it and bring it into their building, so they don't want the hassle. People's been turned away. There's a mailman in their building who lives there. He's been looking for 3 months. He's getting turned away, and he's a mailman making good money.
So it really becomes a catch-22 situation.
And it doesn't matter if you're making good money or not, you're still getting turned away. And BJB, I think, is what they're doing is wrong. There's been at least 4 different fires set in their building. Water hose has been turned on where it went down from floor to floor. A lot of people's apartment, as well as outside, has gotten ruined. They haven't come in and fixed it. A couple of fire hoses are missing. They downway come out and shut off the hoses where can't nobody get to it. What if there's a fire? How are we supposed to get to it?
I've been in the building, and actually, and I remember being in that building many years ago. I'm not going to say how many because people will know too much about me. But I remember being in that building years ago, and the contrast to what's become of that building now is stark. And I would not, for a moment, blame that on the tenants. It seems the general areas, the public areas of the building, have really lapsed into.
It has, and now there's no heating in there. People doesn't have heat. Now they're messing with the hot water where people can't even afford to get up in the morning and take a shower or anything because there's lack of hot water. I mean, I don't know what BJB is doing to try to get us all out, But you know, it's very hard and it's very sad that people has to go through this. And you know, I think if more people come out and support us when we're doing our rallies and stuff, it's really good. But as for me as a tenant, I'm not doing this just because I have an 8-year-old child. Yeah. I'm doing it because there's senior citizens, there's actually elderly people in there, there's people in wheelchairs. Where are they supposed to go? It's not like we have the income or we have resources to say, well, we can take you and place you here. If BJB wants us out, they need to do like they did that lady who was at the Belmont Hotel. They paid her, so she doesn't have to pay you rent until next year sometime. So, I mean, if you want us out, BJB has got to do what they got to do. They should live up to their potential. Sure. Pay us if you want us to move. Because half of the stuff we can't even take because of the conditions in the building. And I'm not leaving. I'm staying until the end. If everybody wants to leave.
Again, because I know Brian wants to jump in here, the representatives from BJB, we will give you a full show to come in and talk about this. And I know there are similar complaints regarding BJB for a number of residences up and down the North Shore here.
Definitely lakefront. And I think one of the big overarching issues that I'm seeing and hearing a lot about here is just simply neglect by property owners. I would actually really like someone from BJB to come on and talk about how they see this because it's mind blowing to me.
They even went out to Jamie Purcell's house, and they went to the neighbor.
Tell folks who Jamie Purcell.
Jamie Purcell is one of the big guys of BJB, and they tried to keep it on the close, but we ended up finding out. And actually, they went out to where he lived, and they let the neighbors know. They passed out flyers to let the neighbor know what BJB is all about and what Jamie Purcell is doing. And one of the tenants there, Melvin Jenkins, he went and put a 5-day notice on Jamie Purcell's door to let him know, this is what you're doing to tenants. We want to know, how do you feel getting served with a 5-day notice?
The interesting thing is, and I think, and that'll bring it over to Maria, is that community and folks from the community. I know Occupy Rogers Park, our friend Bubba the Reeler, and some other folks, Rebecca Harris. Yes. All of these people from the community, friends from Loyola, students from Loyola, have come out in support of what's going on in Astor House. And the same with you, Maria, in Rogers Park with your issue, that you were doing everything you were told to do.
Yes.
In your situation. Talk about a little bit about what happened to you and how you got caught up in this situation.
Okay. Since 4 years, I'm trying to get a modification for my house. But unfortunately, lawyers and other organizations or mortgages are not helping really good. They are not helping at all. And they just took my money and they promised me to help with the bank, yes, but they really didn't. Yeah. And finally, the bank and the bank sold my house to another bank. And I'm trying to contact with this bank, but it's really not working. It was very painful for me and for my family. This is really bad because you don't know where are you going to go, where you are going to live. Yeah. I'm working so hard since 14 years, yeah, trying to keep in my house, and nothing works. And
but you did everything right.
Yes.
It's not like you weren't making your payments and not do. You did everything right, and said you can feel free to jump in on this. It seems like there's kind of an industry that's popped up around housing and foreclosure issues, in which people, entity, groups take advantage of.
Yes.
One thing I'd like to say though, there's plenty of people who, because of the economy and because of the injustice of the world we live in, aren't able to make their payments, and we also are defending those folks too. I think you're right to point out that these folks here we're talking about did everything right, yeah, but there's certainly people who are good people who are just, they lose a job or they have some health problems in their family or something goes wrong, where they miss all payments and then all of a sudden everything goes to hell, really. And I just wanted to maybe bring that up too, because I want to make that clear to people too.
So, Maria, you were working with lawyers. Tell us a little bit about some of the steps you were taking and what happened. If you want to walk us through a little bit of what you've been through.
Okay, with the lawyers, they told me that it nothing can do with the bank. because when a house is sold to another bank, they can do anything. But this is not true, because the bank told me, I went to the bank up front, and they told me that, why you don't come before when that we sold the house? And I said, but I don't know, nobody let me know. I'm not receiving any letter. Yeah. And I told them, this is a trick, because you are the professionals. You know everything about what the bank has to do. Yeah. I am a mother, I'm a worker. I don't know anything about what's happened with the tricks of the bank. Yeah. And I say, now you told me that I have to leave, I have to go. Why? Since 14 years I'm paying, I'm working, I was a very good neighborhood, cleaning my alleys, keeping, united my family. And why they don't tell me anything? They say, no, because we don't know why, but we're sending you letters. And this is not true. I think they just did this to force us to move and to, I don't know, to do something with our homes, selling to another places, or I don't know. But I really worked so hard to keep in my house. And now when Community United find me, they changed my life. Because I see another families fighting, talking, finding more information about what we can do. How did they find you?
How did Communities United find Maria Cavillo?
Okay, because the place where I work, and I'm a director of a daycare. I talked to our parents about what's happened. I was, lost in my house and having the situation, very, very sad, very bad. And they told me it's organizations, honest organization that help people with foreclosure and eviction. And I'm start coming to the meetings, is why I find them. Excellent. They are supporting me to the front of the courts and everything.
And Sid, why don't you expand upon that a little bit? What do you do, or what does Communities United do for people facing?
Well, I mean, we've done a variety of things depending on the issues that people face. Obviously, we believe housing is a human right. That is really the bottom line of everything we do. Yes. So, in whatever way you are housed, and whether that be in a home that you own, a home that you're mortgaged to, if you're a tenant, if you're a person in public housing, we are on your side, and we want to really fight for your right to remain where you wish to remain, and to defend these communities that are being broken up by the economy. I mean, it's important to have a good community.
Would you encourage somebody who's perhaps in a difficult place with a mortgage or facing foreclosure? Would you encourage them to
fight for their rights to remain in their house? We do not acknowledge the right of a bank to steal a house from somebody, and whether that means that they did everything according to what they had to do, or whether they fell behind in payments. We believe the people who own the house are the people who live in the house. Yes. And we also believe the people in the community have a right to not have vacant houses on their block, which encourages crime. It encourages just a devaluation of the whole community. We even will advocate people to take over those houses from banks, and the idea of occupying houses and liberating spaces. We're also behind that. So
excellent. I'll tell the story very quickly. We followed the story of Mike Henderson out on the west side, who's been in foreclosure for 10 years now. He's got him dead to rights. He's got all the paperwork. He'll describe himself as a simple guy, but he's been anything but simple in putting together a case to protect his...
Simple but extremely intelligent.
Exactly. Exactly. But more than that, he's persistent, and even more than that, he's never left his home, and it's been incredibly difficult on him. It cost him his health. He's had a heart attack in the middle of all this. But his advice, last time I went to see him, was the people who are facing foreclosure should not leave their house.
That's right. That's the first thing we say.
Particularly if you feel you've been treated unfairly.
That's true.
And I think the case here shows, and Arby, the same thing with what happened to you, that you can do everything right.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And still
be on
end up in this situation.
Yes, you can.
More and more people are in the country, and more people in the world actually are dealing with, through absolutely no fault of their own, even by anybody's standards, that they deal with this.
They're taking a wrecking ball to communities by throwing these people out.
That's what they're doing.
And at the same time, we're dealing with more and more austerity. We're hearing about how we have to cut public services and all this other stuff. You're literally uprooting the very foundation of communities. Why? What is happening? It's the idea of gentrification comes to mind, which I think is really flawed, especially in the case of Maria here, is that this is someone who works in the community. She's been there for years. She's paying. She shops in the community. This is the multiplier effect that you talk about. You uproot people like that. And in the case of Loyola and some of these properties that BJB is trying to roll over, you're bringing in students 18 to 24, very transient. They're going to be around for a few years. They might pump some money into the local area to certain sort of niche markets and stuff like that. There might be a little bit of a development, but then they're up and gone.
Right.
There's no consistency within the community. People aren't allowed to get to know each other really well, and we're destroying schools, churches, businesses, and we have this transient flow of people coming through. There's no community in that. I don't know what the plan's supposed to be. I don't think they're really.
I think they're really working against community in a very almost a spiritual sense. They're really they're against that concept, at least for their own profits.
Yeah, it does kind of seem like that sometimes. It's really troubling.
And we're seeing that with the school closure issue. But it's families. You're going to displace families from a community, and it's families that really bind that community together.
First, you're going to make it really hard on them, and then you're going to displace them.
To our two moms here.
And with BJB too, that was a voting place where people come out and vote. We actually had a vote. Now they took that away, and they made they built a storage space that was illegal. And one of the tenants who used to live there, she called and made a report about it, and they came out and they told them they had to stop, that they couldn't do anymore. It's a shame what they're doing to people. I know you want to make money, ain't nothing wrong with that, but at least keep housing affordable for people who can't afford to live in higher places. When I moved to the Astro House, I lived with a friend of mine for like 2 months before I actually got a chance to get an apartment. And it's a studio for me and my daughter. And I had my daughter at the grandmother's, and I wanted it to be a surprise for her. And when the grandmother brought her back, I invited her to come up. I said, I want to show you something. My daughter was so excited because we had our own place. Right. And I told my daughter that day, we will never have to look back, because as far as I'm concerned, we will always have our own place. And I'm doing it because, I love my daughter, and I don't want to see her be put in a shelter, or we have to find other means living with other people, And if people want to, they can go on YouTube. We're underneath Astro House, Tenants Fight, Tenants Rally. We've done rallies out in front of the building. We just went to the mayor. We talked with him to try to get him to see what he can do. We met yesterday with Sheriff Tom Dart, and we're trying to set up a meeting where you can come and talk to some of the tenants and stuff. And we're fighting back to take what's theirs. And I thank God for other organizations like these people. They're coming out. They're supporting us. And if anybody wants to come out, we're going to try to do another rally in about 3 or 4 weeks. And we're going to try to do a barbecue where everybody can come together. Hopefully this will all be solved. And BJB, to us, he's got to go. And we're not going to stop until we get what we want. If you want us to move, then you pay us and we'll move.
We've just got a couple of seconds left. And I wanted to say it's important for people in a community to come together in a community. You never know. If you're independently wealthy and you can throw a lot of money around for a lawyer, if a bank makes a mistake, or if you get sick, or you lose a job, or something terrible happens.
Well, I want to say that yes, some people rent, some people is owner on their own home, but we really need to be respected. We respected. We are part of this country. We want to teach our children or other families how we have to be respected. It doesn't matter if we own a house or we rent it. I am a teacher and I'm a director of a daycare. I have 30 families. And I see how my children are depressed at the classroom. When parents are suffering evictions or foreclosure, you can imagine how sad it seemed these children talking to you, how what's happened at home. My father and my mom are fighting because they have no money to move to another house. We are going to evict it. We are going to lose our house. This is very sad. If you see this situation, it really is so sad.
Absolutely. We've got to wrap up here. I just want, there is a continuum from the various kinds of property ownership and residencies, from one to the next. And you're talking about the economy and the housing market. The housing market is, by and large, has been the largest sector of the economy. And we are struggling economically because it has fallen. Well, one of the things that's happened as an imbalance is that there are so many single-family homes. Now, there's nothing wrong with people getting into single-family homes. That's the goal. However, if people are not able to get access first to single resident occupancies, to kind of build up their foundation and then move on to those single family homes, then you're not going to be able to rebuild that part of the economy. So you all are helping people basically stay rooted in the community, maintain this trajectory, hoping that we're going to get people back into homes and get our housing market going again. And that's very positive. You're doing a very good job with it. And thank you very much for coming in.
It's funny, watching Fox News, I thought Chick-fil-A and Walmart were the biggest parts of the economy. But I want to thank our guests, Maria, Arby, and Sid. You guys were awesome. We are going to revisit this again. We are definitely going to revisit this again. This is going to be an ongoing issue. We're going to stay in contact with you guys as well, and you have our undying support here. Again, BJB Properties, the gauntlet is down. Come join us on the show. Let's have a conversation.
I'm on to have a beer.
So thank you again for a great conversation, and that's what it's all about. It's about the conversation.
It's about the solution.
Yeah,
it's about community.
Absolutely. We will see you again next week on the Revolution and Beer Show. Again, thank you. Check the links. Join this conversation on your own. Do your own research. But check that out and go to revolutionandbeer.com. Follow some of the things that we're working on here, and get engaged.
And for God's sake, if you're going to drink beer, drink good beer while you do it.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
You'll never know what it's like standing in my shoes. But if you corner me, you're gonna find a fighter.